Hello there. How are you?
Well, hello there. Hello.
General Kenobi.
Yes.
So, hi everyone. I'm here with Jesper Tønnes, the director of The Last Padawan and the upcoming Last Padawan II. And today we will be discussing everything that he's been working on and how we made this film that maybe a lot of you watched. So let's get right into it. So, hi Jesper, can you introduce yourself, talk to us a bit about what you do and why you do it?
I can try. Well, hello everybody. My name is Jesper. I'm a Danish film director. Denmark is a European country in the north in Scandinavia. And I've been making movies ever since I was, like many of us, I've been making movies since I was a little kid. And I was always a big fan of Steven Spielberg movies and Ron Howard movies, James Cameron movies, Star Wars, of course, Indiana Jones. And then in 2000 and in the beginning of 2016, I had this crazy idea that I wanted to challenge myself and explore that genre of films, like adventure movies. So I decided to try to make a Star Wars fan film, also in the hopes that somebody would see some of my movies.
I think maybe 2 or 3 people have seen your short film.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Like 2.3 people have seen it.
2.3 people.
Yeah, but I'm really proud of how that movie has been received on YouTube. I made movies before that as well. I've always made short things, but The Last Padawan was really my first real attempt to make something that was supposed to feel like a movie, like going to the cinema and watching something special. And it was a really tough thing to do because it was just the whole thing of being in over your head the entire time. So I'm really happy that people enjoyed it.
So I just want to know from the people that are connected right now, have you watched The Last Padawan? I just want to know what's your background, and probably all of you have watched our video from yesterday, the critique that we've done, and Jesper has already watched it as well. How did you like our critique?
Oh, I loved your critique. I love all critique of my work. That's one of the wonderful things of putting things up on YouTube. You get to interact with your audience. For me, The Last Padawan 1 was a big experiment of trying to do an action adventure movie on no budget at all. And when we came home from shooting it, we shot it in 3 days. We came home and I saw what we did, and I was like, this is never going to be good, because this is what have we done? And then I started slowly assembling it and seeing what it could become, and we did some reshoots, and then it was finally done. And I went through this whole process of learning to do visual effects and working with a composer and to do an original score. And then at the end of it, I had so many thoughts and doubts and things I didn't like and things I liked in the movie. And then I put it out on YouTube, and now here a couple of years later, I can say that everything that I don't like about the film, or every thought I have about the film, has been mentioned in that comment in some kind of way. And I think that's amazing, because people in the industry, when you work in filmmaking, people always say oh, they're not going to notice, the audience is never going to notice that, but they do. They do see it. They're I think that's amazing. I remember when a guy or somebody wrote in the end, when we do the fight scene, or when we do the fight, there's this big shot of the Inquisitor and the Padawan standing face to face on a field, and that whole thing is just stolen from Rodriguez's Predators film, because there was like a samurai fight in that I just really loved, and somebody wrote that on YouTube. They were like, that's like fucking that's Predators, and they were right.
I have a few comments. So CA Raven says, I watched it in preparation for this interview. Daniel says, I watched it and way before you guys. And their Misting Wolf that says that he hasn't seen it, but he's gonna go and watch it right after this. So this gives us a feel of the knowledge people have of the Last Padawan, and I think there are really are some good points that the Last Padawan that you've done really great. There's a great story. There's great visual effects, and of course there are some things that we addressed in our critique that you can go and watch, but most of it is amazing, and it's clear that you're a fan of Star Wars and wanted to create something great to inspire other filmmakers.
Oh yeah, really. I'm really proud of when people go through the Rebel Pages YouTube channel, that they can see how not just only me, but also the people that I work with, how we evolved over the last 4 to 5 years, like since we started making films, and where we are now with the new Last Padawan II trailer that just came out. The whole thing, like that's also the beauty of it, that you can see like the process, that you don't just turn good overnight, that it's actually a lot of hard work, and you make something, and then you put it out, and then you make something new. That's just like that's like, and you do that forever.
Yeah, you get better with time and forever. Talking about that, so what filmmaker has inspired you to make these films and to get into filmmaking?
I've been always a big fan of people like Stanley Kubrick and Steven Spielberg, and also James Cameron he's had a fond place in my heart. I really love those guys. I think that especially Spielberg, when I grew up, like his way of making movies that could capture my imagination and make me inspired, and like I remember like seeing not only just Star Wars, but Indiana Jones and Jurassic Park, and after watching those movies, like I couldn't sit still. I had to go out. I had to go out and play. I had to go out and keep trying to stay in those worlds, because they were so great and so fascinating and felt so alive. And that's also like my biggest goal. That if I could ever give something back, it would like the hope that some other child somewhere would see something that I did and be inspired to go out and play.
And I want to know on this film, on the Last Padawan, the first one. We're gonna ask it for the second one after. But do you have a funny anecdote of something that happened on set and that's memorable to you?
Well, there's a lot of anecdotes from the Last Padawan. One thing is that like some of it is we shot the whole thing in 3 days. A small crew of 4 people did the whole thing, and we came back, and then we went out and we were like, we came back and I saw it, and I was like, we have to shoot some of this again, because this is not like, we just shot it too fast. It didn't work properly. And then we actually went out like a month and a half after that, and then shot something more. But then because some of the visual effects shots that we were planning to do didn't pan out, like I tried to set some high goals, and some of it didn't work. Then so I actually ended up using some of the things that we shot the first time around that we weren't going to use. I ended up using those again. Like the moment you see here with me sitting in the opening, that's a reshoot. We shot that's a reshoot. But when you see me meditate in the middle of the film, that's from the original opening of the film.
From the original opening, okay.
Yeah, that's from the first time we shot that scene.
So, okay, so that's
that was something that was solved in the edit.
That's a really interesting thing. That, well, since you reshot most of the film.
No, not most of it. Just a couple of scenes.
Okay.
We reshot the entire opening.
Okay.
And it's interesting because in your critique you talk about that, like that you think that it would have been more interesting if the Padawan had struggled with using the Force.
No.
Okay. Because then that would be like a setup for him grabbing the saber later on in the film. And we actually did that in the original opening. That was like a thing we did. But then when we shot this, I can't even remember why, but we went back on it and did a more like conventional. Let's just show that he has the Force.
Yeah.
And then that's a setup for the end.
It's this shot right here. So what I was saying actually with that is that just to know before I talk, is your character supposed to be able to use the Force easily?
Yes, he is. He doesn't have like he's not harmed in any way where his connection to the Force is fine. We tried to focus more on his abilities with a lightsaber.
Okay.
As his of the things he couldn't do.
Okay. So as a Force user that is completely able to use the Force, what I was saying was that things like this where it takes just a bit of time for the stick to come to his hand instead of coming instantly, because a lot of short films do that to replicate a bit like when Luke is in the cave in Empire and he's trying to pull the lightsaber. So they're like struggling to pull something to them. And it feels like something like that. It doesn't feel like he.
That's the original opening.
Yeah,
right
that's the original opening. Okay.
Yeah, but you are right, and it is a direct tribute to Empire Strikes Back and that moment in the Wampa cave. But it's also I think there's some. When you talk about like making a scene, you always want to like put as much tension in the scene as possible, like as much drama.
Yeah.
And it was just a much more interesting moment if it just vibrated a tiny bit, even though it didn't really have any effect on the story. It just made the moment more magical.
I understand it's just we're how do you say? We're really looking at everything that.
No, but I get it. Like, I think that moment I would have loved to, like, in a different process, explored that moment even more. But this, like, all of this as well with him tied up is a reshoot.
Okay.
And we even did this with our second, like our original photographer didn't have the time to be with us on that day, so we did it with our. Second photographer and or assistant photographer who's also brilliant, but when he saw the duct tape on his mouth, he was like, "What have you done? Like, why would you put duct tape in a Star Wars film?" And I have to be honest, we did it because like we didn't have any, like we were out in the forest, we were like 4 people who came out there in a car, we didn't bring any cloth to tie him up with, and in my head I was like, I hate it when they just have like cloth just in the middle of their mouth and then they can't speak. So I made what I would call today a bad decision and put gaffer tape in a Star Wars film.
That's not something that bothered me, honestly. But yeah. So Francis that couldn't be here, but he had a few questions and comments. So he wanted to ask you if you're a fan of Lord of the Rings, just because he thinks the beginning looks a lot like the aesthetic of Lord of the Rings.
Well, I'm from 1990, so I was 10 years old when the Lord of the Rings came out, like when the Fellowship of the Rings came out. So that was like crack cocaine for my imagination. So that was that was really so that's something like those original three Lord of the Rings movies are some of my favorites. But it's not a direct inspiration. Like this whole movie was a huge how do you say that? Like an experiment to pay tribute to a lot of things. Like I just wanted to like reference as much as I could, like like a Tarantino would do. I wanted to do something that was a bit Indiana Jonesy. I wanted to do something that was a bit Star Warsy. I wanted to do something that was a bit a bit like James Cameron, something. And so that's also why like he's hanging upside down, because that's also like
a reference to Empire again.
But it's also really, when I look at it now, I also see that it's really fan filmy to do, because it has no subtext in the story to do all these things. Like it doesn't mean anything in the context of this story.
Okay, so the next thing I wanted to ask is about the box and the contents of the box. So,
yes.
Francis really thinks that you should have kept this as a mystery for later on, instead of showing it right now. That it contains kyber crystals. So, what did you think about that part of the critique?
Well, I wanted the Padawan to see why he needed the box. That the thing that the crawl sets up, that he needs the crystals, and now the crystals are in the box.
Okay.
So now the Padawan needs the box, and also he's a pacifist, so he doesn't need to engage them. If they didn't have the box, like he could just like go away now. But because they have something that he needs, well, now he has to interact.
That's a really good reason. That so he would just go away if they didn't have something that he needed, but because they have something that he needs, he has to do something about that. And so as a pacifist and as a Jedi, how does he take out these guys? Because we don't see it. It's all in our imagination. But what's your take on what he's doing to these guys?
Well, my first thing is that they all survive. He doesn't kill them. We turned like the whole thing into like a kind of horror thing for a brief second here. But he doesn't kill him, of course. But I know it's maybe an annoying answer, but I love this kind of filmmaking, and I don't think there should be an answer. I think some things in filmmaking can be magical and just happen in a filmic language. So for me, it was kind of like he pacifies them, maybe, like that could be an answer. But it's a magical film moment, so they disappear.
And so you have an amazing shot at the middle of the short film, and we want to know, how much work was it to do it? Did you do it yourself, or did you have some of your team do it? And I'll show it in a few seconds, so it's a bit later. So right after this, he's getting up and he sees the Imperial Star Destroyer and the TIE fighters coming to him. So how much work was it to do these shots?
I knew absolutely nothing about doing visual effects when we shot the film. And I remember like that's also from the reshoot, that part, because I started working on the things that we had shot, and then I realized we can do this better. And when we found that location, like the whole thing just became okay. This is what we have to do. But the first thing I did, I remember opening like what we shot and then putting in like a drawing of a Star Destroyer and tracking it on the clouds, and it looked like shit. And I still have that like frame grab somewhere because it's like a total reminder of where I started in this process. We did that. I had the idea to do it, and that 3D model is available for free online. It's a really public model, like everyone can use it. We of course did like the custom on top of the whole thing, on the radar thing. We did like the model of course had to be time specific, and in A New Hope, all the Star Destroyers, they have like this crown on the top next to the radars.
Yeah.
We built that. We built that in 3D. But then like the whole thing is basically just like a 3D model, really well lit by. I got some assistance from Andreas Hørby, who is he's a visual effects artist. He worked with me on this. We've done commercial work together. He's also working with me on he did all the crowdfunding campaign that we did, and he's also working on the Last Padawan II. And we did this together.
Well, just saying, just this shot, I have to repeat it again. I think it's amazing. You did a really good job, not just with the visual effects, but also with the cinematography and the storytelling. Just this shot tells a story.
Yeah. It's greatly inspired by, if you remember, like the posters for the first Star Wars Battlefront game, from like the first new Star Wars Battlefront game. It's really inspired by that.
I would have to look into it. I'm not a super big Battlefront.
It's a tiny soldier standing in front of a huge AT-AT.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was inspired by that.
Okay, so as I know you're a big Star Wars fan as well. So is there anything else that you would have changed in the first film, just to so that the story fits more into the Star Wars universe?
Well, I would love to have the Inquisitor's costume is something that I would love to have. This was just at the first season of Rebels where they mentioned Inquisitors, and I would love to have had the resources to do like a proper costume for him. We didn't. Of course, this was just a rental.
Fits pretty well.
Thing. Yeah, we tried. I went through like a whole theater rental shop and just tried to find a uniform that I thought was okay. This can be like what Dooku would do. Like he could be that kind of admiral. Like it could be something about that. He used to be a military leader doing the Clone Wars, because we didn't know at this point how Inquisitors were made. So I was like, okay, so he's a military leader from the Clone Wars. Now it's the Empire, and then they're looking for people with Force sensitivity, and then they find him, and then they train him really quickly to just be like this really efficient lightsaber fighter and go out and then defeat Jedi or hunt down Jedi. And that's also why he doesn't use the Force, because he's supposed to be just like a brawler. Like he hasn't learned anything about using the dark side of the Force to manipulate things. He can only use a lightsaber, because that would be something that you could be partially trained in, like as a military man as well. So that was my initial thought, that he's actually quite new to this whole being Force and what is that. He's just always been talented, and now he's been told, well, that's because you have the Force. But I would love to if he could be just introduced better. Like if you could have seen him land in his TIE fighter and come out, that would have been so awesome.
Well, while we're on the subject of this character, and I just want to clarify and ask. At the end of the film, they both fall on their face and are there for until the next morning, basically. So what's the idea behind?
Sunrises.
Yeah.
Well, the idea was that it was poetic. There was it is a like in a world where we could have done something more ambitious. I think this movie I think this is hopefully something that people can learn of, that like if you want to make something, make it. Like, don't stop yourself because I can't make it like in the best way or in the perfect way. Like, you have to just make it. So when we came out and we saw the location, and like this was the idea we had for the scene that we knew we could make, and that's why we make it. Like, I would love if there could have been like 100 stormtroopers going around searching for him, and because that's like it's a ship with a entire army on board. I think they would have gone out and looked for their inquisitor.
Something like I mentioned in the
yeah, exactly. But you do that all the time as a filmmaker in small places, and sometimes as this in big places. Like, you try to shove something under the rock and you hope that people won't
notice that nobody went looking for the inquisitor.
Yeah, exactly. But also because we didn't have any stormtrooper outfits, and I wasn't comfortable doing virtual stormtroopers or anything like that.
I think it's a good decision not to have tried to doing virtual stormtroopers.
No, thank you. We worked with what we had and tried to tell a story with that. That's kind of like my take on it. But the whole visual effects thing, like. I guess I don't think I answered that properly. Like, when doing TIE fighters flying, and like I do all the animation. That's like my thing. I do animation and I do rough lighting, and I use that in my edit when I put things together. So I will sit and work in Cinema 4D and in After Effects and Photoshop and Premiere mostly at the same time, and then make my temps, and then when I'm completely happy with the timing and the animation, I will send that project file from Cinema 4D over to people like Andreas, who I work with, and they will then do lighting and texturing and all the things that make things look amazing. And then I get it back, and then both like me, and we work with a wonderful artist named Ian as well on the trailer for Last Padawan II. We all do like composition, where you take all the elements and you blend them together and add fog and like make something unsharp and maybe a bit of motion blur if you haven't done that already. And so it's a really we're a small group, but it is a group process where we have where we develop the workflow. Well, we developed the workflow doing the first movie. We didn't know anything about what we were doing before we started. We didn't have any notion of what was right or how it was supposed to look. We just made it up as we went along.
I think we can now go into The Last Padawan II. But just before we get into that, I want to ask you a few questions. So,
yes,
what's your Star Wars top film list?
Top film list. Wow, that's I don't think I can do like a complete rundown of them all, but I have to say that this is also something that people have to remember, that it depends on when you watch them and how old you are. I know that's I love Dave Filoni. Just came out, like the man who's made the Clone Wars and Rebels and a bunch of Star Wars TV series, and he did this whole speech about how Star Wars is for children, and I believe that very much as well. I saw it when I was a child. It had a huge effect on me. So therefore, I have to say, like, Revenge of the Sith made a huge impression on me, and the prequels had a huge impression in general on me. But like in the originals, I think that also I will say Empire Strikes Back, I think, is the best Star Wars film. But the ending of Return of the Jedi, where Luke says no to the Emperor and throws away his lightsaber is the best Star Wars moment there ever was. And when it comes to film quality, well, then you have to talk about the sequels, because Star Wars has never been prettier or more energetic or like more modern than it was in Force Awakens and The Last Jedi. They're so like I was moved when I saw the Force Awakens. I cried in the theater because I was just like, it feels like being 12 again, watching this.
When I went to see The Force Awakens, I had bought 2 rows of seats in the cinema room for the first viewing of the Force Awakens.
Yeah.
2 whole rows I bought because I had so many people that I wanted to bring with me and to watch the film with me. So I brought 14 people. No, more than that. I think we were 20 people, and I reserved like 22 seats.
That's amazing. That's the whole thing about. That's also the thing about like these kinds of movies. They're not just entertainment. They're like an experience. And like it's culture. That's also why they're so interesting. Like and culture is supposed to be seen together, like in unity. That's also why like theater, like here in COVID times where we can't go to the theater, it's quite interesting to see now that we're becoming aware of how much we need to be together when we watch art. I was at the movies for the first time 2 days ago. Since COVID started, and I saw Tenet, which was just an amazing event, because I went back to the cinema and it was like a huge movie, and yeah, it was like it was wonderful being back.
And maybe that's going to be easier for you. Who's your favorite Star Wars character and why?
Wow, I think. No, yeah, maybe that's easier. But I always had like a huge. I loved Qui-Gon Jinn when I was
Qui-Gon.
He was
okay.
Yeah, I don't know why, but like Liam Neeson, like he was my man.
He is the true Jedi. Yeah.
He's but the best Jedi. Well, it is like Kenobi, but he's also been with us for the longest time. I think Ewan McGregor did a wonderful job on
Ewan McGregor. Oh my God, I'm so excited to see him back in the Star Wars universe.
Yes.
I can't wait to have a glimpse of what they're gonna do with the Obi-Wan series on Disney Plus.
It's really a shame. It's almost a shame that Clone Wars and Rebels have done the Darth Maul versus Obi-Wan storyline so well.
That's
because they can't touch that. They can't touch that at all.
I was thinking the same thing, but I'm guessing they're gonna use something in between Rebels and the Clone Wars. So
I'm really interested in the whole thing because I don't want to I work as I work as a first assistant director, to make a living, and when you start to make a lot of movies and a lot of cinematic storytelling, you learn that it's a struggle and people do their best. So it becomes harder and harder for me to critique things, because I really understand, or I feel for the people and the process. But when I watched The Mandalorian, The Mandalorian was this weird experience, because there were episodes that were amazing, and there were episodes that were some of the worst things I've ever seen, cringe wise. And that was just so interesting.
I'm not sure I would go that far, but
I think the Dantooine episode, or Tatooine episode, I'm still what were they like? That was like.
There are a few episodes that I'm
that was so fan film. That was so fan filmish. That episode, but some of the others were amazing. So I'm looking forward to Kenobi, but I hope that they're doing it Right.
I don't know who's gonna direct it and produce it.
No, I think
As
they have some
in
people
my
already
head,
involved.
in my head, I'm like, if Dave Filoni is in the loop, then we're good.
Then everything's gonna be okay. Yeah. Always bring Dave. That should be like a T-shirt. Always bring Dave.
So let's get right into The Last Padawan II, and we're
Yes, but I
gonna.
have something I have to.
Okay.
I have to add. I have something that
Yeah.
I have to add because there's a big thing always that when people comment The Last Padawan 1, they always say, "Oh my God, he's breathing at the end." Well, he was always supposed to be breathing at the end. That's the point. That's why the music goes from being happy to being kind of sad, just before the movie ends. Well, maybe I didn't do my job properly and tell the story, but like maybe people are confused. But he was supposed to be alive.
He was supposed to be alive. Okay.
Yeah.
So, in Dave we trust. I agree with that. Thanks, TSC Studio. Totally agree with that. So, let's start the next subject by playing the trailer for The Last Padawan 2 right now.
Let's do it.
Why does the Empire hunt you? All you do is hide in the woods while people die.
Why would the Empire come here, seal off an entire planet, murder and torture innocent people, just to catch one guy?
You tell me.
Because they're looking for a Jedi.
I overestimated you, Padawan. I thought if I touched a hair of innocence, you would come running. But no. Very un-Jedi of you.
The Empire killed everyone I knew. My friends, my master. They died so I would live.
To do what? Help me win this war.
Okay, and we're back. That is looking so amazing.
Well, thank you very much.
The visuals, the effects, and I saw there that you included the part where the Inquisitor comes down in his TIE fighter this time, and we're gonna be able to see it instead of just imagining
it. Yes. Oh yes, yeah. We this whole, like, the first movie was made by maybe when, like, at the end of the whole thing, maybe 10, 12 people had been involved in making the first movie. Like, we're way above 100 on this one. Like, this is a proper film. I've spent so much time working with so many talented people over the last couple of years who've seen the first movie. So when I started asking around, be like asking like a photographer or a producer or a guy doing like a second AC or do props people, and I was like, would you work on this with me for free? Like, would you be interested in doing this kind of project? A lot of people said yes. I just like that's something that I just thought about, because that's like one of the most important things that we tried to do in this entire project is that when I saw fan films on YouTube also, like, 10 years ago, and I loved them dearly, because I was huge inspired by all of them, but many of them are mostly based around a gimmick. Like, you know, the movie starts and then 5 seconds in, they're fighting, or somebody has turned on a lightsaber.
A lot of times it's just the fight and that's it. There's no story.
Exactly. And when we started doing The Last Padawan, when I started writing it, I was like, okay, so in our movie, the hero is not going to have a lightsaber until the very end, because I want to do the fight. Like that's basically the dream of making one of these, like the fantasy of making one of these films. But I have to earn the fight, so we have to tell a story about why they fight, and then we can see the fight. And despite all the Last Padawan one's faults and mistakes and all the wonderful things that happen when you make a movie, I think what people respond to when they watch it on YouTube is that it is at least trying to tell a Star Wars story. It is like we're trying to put some kind of feeling in there, and we have.
It's not
really
just
much
action, lightsaber.
No. It's a story, and that's also what we've taken into the second one here. We really focused a lot on telling a story, where we did a lot of paying tribute and like doing a lot of Star Wars lore and you know, references in the first movie. This movie is much more its own thing. Like we also want people who don't necessarily know what Star Wars is to be able to see this film. So we've tried to make it like much more about goals than about like a larger Star Warsy story. So like the Star Wars things, we get those out of the way, and then we just let the story run itself for 45 minutes, which is the runtime of the Last Padawan II.
And 45 minutes is crazy. How much budget did you get for that film to be able to do a 45-minute for The Last Padawan II?
Well, I have to look up this because in US dollars, we got around $30,000.
$30,000.
Yeah, 30,000 US, and we shot for 12 days on the west coast of Denmark. And everybody worked for free. Like everybody on this entire project has worked for free. And we had, you know, professional filmmakers, and we had people who've never been on a film set before. We had like extras. We had people from all over Denmark coming in as stormtroopers. People who've had their like from 501st and like Danish Garrison and Troopers for Charity. And like all these groups of people who have their own Star Wars costumes, they came in as extras, and like
that's one of the things that's fun about doing a Star Wars film, is that people have Star Wars stuff. You can find people with stormtrooper armor, whereas some other things are more difficult to find if you do let's say a sci-fi film that's not based in Star Wars.
Oh, exactly. I don't think this movie would be able to, like, you couldn't do a movie of this scale for this like small amount of money if it wasn't in the Star Wars universe, because it has been such a hook when talking to people about like we needed a place to stay, so we contacted a really nice, lovely camping place on the west coast called Hvidbjerg Strand Camping, who had like these huts, and they gave us the huts for free because they wanted to support the project. So we had a place to stay for free when we shot the whole thing. We like when we said we were doing a Star Wars fan film, people just became like instantly interested in the project. If I had we can even like use that you know, philosophy on the first movie. If I just made like an original piece, people wouldn't. Sorry to say, people wouldn't care, because they would have no reason to Google it or like look it up on YouTube.
That's the problem with a lot of people, a lot of starting short films and projects, is that people are not interested in new and novel stuff, and they need a way to discover it as well. Like, when are you looking up something? Let's say, okay, when are you looking up the world of Diratia, let's say. So that's my fantasy universe. That's maybe now a few thousand people know about, but I don't think they're researching it very often or very thoroughly. When is anyone gonna research that and be like, hey, I'm trying to find a short film based on that? Nobody. So doing a film that's based on something that's already created builds some interest. And
it does, and it also gives a lot of tools. Like it's like playing music. Like when you play other people's music, you have to adapt your talent to their music, and by that you evolve your own style, because you pressure yourself to become better, and then you learn what you like and what you don't like, and this whole thing, like we shot this whole thing on dollies and Steadicams. There's very little like handheld things in this, because we really try to stay in that. Like if you ever seen like Lawrence of Arabia or like the classic adventure movies, and Indiana Jones as well, we tried to stay in that kind of cinematic environment, and that was really a challenge for all of us, because it's hard to work with, and it's like you can't just like walk around the actor. Like if the scene is slightly uninteresting, you can't just be dramatic with the camera. The scene really has to work, because it's like the camera is just standing there recording it. It's a super fun challenge. It really is.
So you have to work with both the amazing locations that you have, the actors that they need to deliver, so that you can feel all of their emotions while they're on screen. And all the costumes and props that you have as well really push into that feeling of
well, we got like this whole thing like is shot on the west coast of Denmark in a place called the Warden Sea, Vadehavet.
Yep.
Which is a nature environment. It's UNESCO, or it's like it's not sacred, but it's like a protected nature environment. And we shot the whole thing there because we were even supported by some local funds, like culture funds from the area, like Kulturregion Vadehavet, which is like a culture fund who just supports interesting art projects in the area. They gave us most of our budget, because they also believed in that this could be interesting to see, like a Star Wars film or a Star Wars fight shot in the middle of a completely flat ocean.
And I'm just going to read a few comments. So a lot of people say, great work, very nice, interesting, super cool. I like that you didn't jump straight into the fight when you were talking about... So, and what was your inspiration for... Was there any inspiration taken from other movies outside of Star Wars? And you mentioned Indiana Jones and a few others. I think.
Kurosawa, like all good Star Wars, you go back to the one who inspired the whole thing, Akira Kurosawa, and Sergio Leone as well. As this movie is very much a samurai western.
And there's also Francis, our director, that's in the chat, and he's saying, "Holy." There's such a low budget and looking super great in the trailer, in the behind the scenes. You are doing a great job with The Last Padawan II. From what we can see right now, and
thank you.
The quality of the VFX are super good. And he's saying we're aiming to do something on that level at least for Shadow of the Conqueror, or short film as well. I have
no doubts that you will. But that's also like you're a really nice team of people who are used to work together, and that's the same formula that we've been using on The Last Padawan. Like I'm only like this whole thing. All you're seeing is like it's me standing on the shoulders of some really talented people. when you see like the lighting and the way the camera is used, and like, you know, that's our DP, like our photographer Anders Lindved. And also I had an assistant, or not an assistant, I had a co-director with me the entire time, as Eriksen, because I was acting and we had to shoot really fast. Like we had to do a couple of scenes per day. So there would be no time for me to go over and like watch the monitor. So I took one of my favorite directors with me, and he helped me the entire way. Like we had so many wonderful people on this project, some of my best friends, and that's why it works. So like that's why it's so good. Like on the first Last Padawan, as I said, we were 4 people. We were a guy holding we were a sound guy, 2 camera guys, and and then we had a runner as well.
And is there anything else that you can tell us about The Last Padawan that isn't super known, or something like that? Do you have any anecdotes of filming on set that are funny and that really stayed with you of that shoot?
The shooting The Last Padawan II is one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. I lost 8 kilos shooting that movie in the course of 2 weeks. We worked tirelessly to make sure that we didn't just run over everybody on set, and we really tried to do something special and something interesting, and we pushed ourselves to the absolute limit of what we were capable of. And still, when I watch it now, I'm like, this is not my best work. It doesn't mean that it's not good. Like that's what I do as an artist. Like
you're always critiquing yourself.
Yeah, I put the bar up here, and then the result is here, and then everybody's happy, because the bar was maybe too high in the beginning.
I always do that. And there's a great there's an investor that some people may know. His name is Grant Cardone. He's written a book that's called 10x, and basically he said right at the start of the book, he says, if you want to get to something great in life, take your current objective and multiply it by 10.
Yeah.
And then when you do 10 times the work needed to get to that result, even if you don't get to that result, you're going to get 8 or 9 times above what you were aiming at the start. And I think that's a great philosophy to have, to not, because a lot of people say, oh, you should always set goals very low and not to have too high expectations because you're going to be disappointed afterwards. But if you put the bar high and you put all of the effort and all of the energy that's needed to get there, then you're going to get there.
Scorsese said a wonderful thing as well. He said that as Martin Scorsese, who directed The Departed and Taxi Driver and stuff, he said if you don't cry the first time you watch a cut of your movie, like the first time you watch like the thing just cut together, an assembly you could also call it, then you're not caring enough. And that's like the biggest challenge, I think, for a lot of people when they start doing art, is that you put yourself in a position where you will discover your own limits. And then you run like into a wall, and it says, this was the best you could do. Like you were there, you did your best, and this was the best you could do. But then you have to do something extraordinary. You have to work through that. You have to continue working with something that you don't like, and then suddenly you will see it become something you actually do like. You will learn maybe to love it, or you will work it into something that you can use to something that you actually enjoy. And then you will evolve as an artist, as a human being, and then you will come out on the other end, and you will have conquered the project, and you will release it to the world. Even like I love The Last Padawan 1, but I was completely aware of all the things people are saying in the YouTube comments when I released it. But I love the movie for what it's been able to do for me creatively, like what I've learned from it. And every project I do is like that. We write a movie, and then we shoot a different movie, and then we edit a different movie, and learning to be able to maintain some kind of morale through all of that, that's what you got to do. You got to go out every day and you got to practice. You got to work with like if you want to direct movies, don't wait. Take your phone, go out and start doing it, because there's so much you have to learn. So you have to just start working now.
Thanks, Jesper, for having been here. It has been amazing talking to you. Really.
Oh, likewise.
Thank you. I super appreciated our discussion. I love Star Wars, so discussing Star Wars is never even with Shad, the author of the book we're adapting. I've had discussions of a few hours with him just about Star Wars. And yeah, the vision that you have and the energy that you have really is what makes you a great filmmaker. And
thank you very much.
If we can collaborate on anything, we can do a project across countries. We've already suggested it to the people at that have done Devil's Door, the last short film that we've reviewed. We've also said to them, if you want to do a collaboration, we're not going to be physically together, but we can do something that's shot in 2 different places and can have something interesting to it. Just an idea to get keep in the back of your head.
Oh, I will protect that idea. I will protect it dearly. But also, when we have to do something when the film comes out, hopefully, I really hope The Last Padawan II will come out on November 7th, 2020.
November 27th. Okay,
that's
that's on my calendar right now.
Yeah, and we I can't wait to hear what everybody's going to say about it. I can't wait to hopefully people will enjoy it. But also, I hope that you will we should do something.
We're
talk about it again.
We're obviously gonna do another review of the sequel. Me and Francis are gonna work on that, so we're scheduling that to review the Last Padawan 2, and let's have you back on the show. Just before the film releases or just after it gets released.
It will be a pleasure.
So thanks a lot, Jesper, for having been here. Thanks everyone to have been with us and to have listened. And see you next time.
Bye-bye.